The great chamber was a circle of cold light and silent judgment. It floated in the void, a jeweled ring surrounding the central star of the galactic core. Ships from 100 worlds, sleek and ancient, docked at its spires. Inside, the air hummed with 1,000 different chemistries, and the gravity was set to a gentle, universal standard that still felt slightly wrong to Ji-hun's earthborn bones. He stood at the simple, unadorned podium allotted to humanity's delegation, his knuckles pale where they gripped the smooth alien stone. Ji-hun was a man built for patience, but today, every second was a wait. His dark hair, streaked with premature gray from a decade of these negotiations, was neatly combed. His suit, a conservative earth design, felt like a costume among the flowing silks, metallic scales, and holographic auras of the other ambassadors. Behind him, at the small observation bench, Hana sat perfectly still. Her sharp eyes were fixed on the central dais, missing nothing. She was his advisor, his anchor, the best xenotechnologist Earth had ever produced. She saw the politics in the flicker of a tentacle, the betrayal in the shifting hue of a counselor's skin. A matter of Sol 3. Designated Earth is now called for final adjudication. A voice chimed, neither male nor female. Translating for the presiding intelligence, Counselor Velair of the Terran Combined rose. His species was humanoid, but elongated, with skin the color of polished iron and eyes like chips of black glass. The Terran had been among the first to discover Earth, and their disdain had been immediate and profound. The record is clear. Velair began, his voice a dry rasp that filled the vast space. The humans, in their brief century among the stars, have proven themselves a disruptive element. Unchecked ambition. A genetic predisposition for chaos. They do not understand the natural order. Ji-hun's jaw tightened. The record was a tapestry of half-truths and jealousies. Yes, Earth had shared its faster-than-light drive schematics with the struggling Ulier, whose own engines failed constantly. Yes, they had given agricultural technology to the famine-stricken people of Kayla Prime. They had not asked for exclusive mining rights or cultural submission in return. They had simply helped. They ignore established protocols. Another counselor, a wispy being of condensed gas from the Zen system, whispered into the communal mind link. Their ships are unpredictable. They alter standard designs. That was Hana's work. Human engineers, she among them, looked at a perfect, millennia-old warp coil and asked, what if we tweaked the magnetic field here? It made the drives 8% more efficient. To the council races, it was sacrilege. Progress was a slow, deliberate river. Humanity was a flash flood. Velair continued, pacing slowly before the assembled leaders of the galaxy. Most egregious is their cultural contamination. They speak of democracy to species with blessed hive minds. They show individual art to collective consciousness beings. They spread ideas like a virus, destabilizing the gentle, guided evolution of younger species. He gestured, and a hologram shimmered into existence. It showed a human trader on a backwater world, laughing with a group of local farmers, showing them how to hybridize their crops using simple gene splicers Earth had provided. The scene was meant to show contamination. Ji-hun saw sharing. Hana saw the beginning of a self-sufficient colony that wouldn't need to buy overpriced grain from the Terran. They are a child with a plasma torch in a room full of antiques, Velair concluded, his black eyes locking onto Ji-hun. They must be contained before they burn down the gallery of civilization itself. The vote was called. It was a formality. Ji-hun had counted the heads, read the subtle signs Hana had catalogued. The older powers, comfortable in their dominance, feared the new. The clients of those powers voted as they were told. One by one, symbols glowed in the air above each delegation's station. Red for exile, blue for probation, green for inclusion. Red, a smattering of blue from a few sympathetic but powerless systems. No green dot. The presiding intelligence chimed again. By majority accord, the species of Sol 3 humanity is hereby expelled from the Galactic Council. All trade agreements, communications treaties, and travel permissions are revoked. Existing human vessels within Council jurisdiction have one standard cycle to depart. After this time, they will be considered contraband and subject to seizure or destruction. The Council's protective borders are closed to you. The sentence hung in the air, final and heavy: exile, not just from a club, but from the community of knowledge, from the interstellar economy, from the shared security that kept the true nightmares of the void at bay. They were to be quarantined on their rock. Valere walked slowly over to Ji-hun's podium. He leaned in close, the scent of ozone and cold metal washing over the human. "You see now," he rasped, the words for Ji-hun alone. "Your noise, your haste, your kindness, it has no place here. The universe has an order. You are offered a humble seat at the far table. You tried to sit at the head. Now you have no table at all. Go home, human. Go back to your little planet and learn your place." Ji-hun did not flinch. He met the black glass eyes, and for a moment the practiced diplomat fell away. What remained was the core of a man from a world that had fought its way up from the mud and the ash time and again. He said nothing to Valere. He simply turned, collected his data slate, and nodded to Hana. Together they walked from the chamber. The eyes of the galaxy watched them go, some with pity, some with satisfaction, most with simple indifference. The doors, massive things inscribed with the history of 1,000,000 years of civilization, slid shut behind them with a final thunderous boom. In the quiet antechamber, the artificial gravity felt even more wrong. Hana let out a slow, controlled breath. Her hands, which had been still as stone, trembled slightly. They took it all, even the shared astrophysical data, the medical databases, everything. Ji-hun stared at the blank wall, seeing not the polished surface, but the faces of Earth's billions. The hopeful, striving, messy, wonderful people he had just failed. The weight of it threatened to crush him. Then Hana spoke again, her voice low and fierce. "They think this is the end. They think we will crawl back to Sol and wither." Ji-hun looked at her. He saw no despair in her eyes. He saw a cold, focused fire. The same fire that had looked at a perfect warp coil and seen how to make it better. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "I'm thinking," Hana said, turning to walk toward their waiting, now outlawed ship, "that they just gave us the one thing we never had before." "And what is that?" "A clear enemy," she said, "and absolutely nothing left to lose." They boarded their slim vessel, the Morning Star. As the docking clamps released, Ji-hun took one last look at the glittering council ring, a monument to stagnation and fear masquerading as order. He felt the exile not as a death sentence, but as a severing of chains he hadn't fully known were there. Vyler's words echoed in his mind. "Learn your place." As the Morning Star's engines whined to life, plotting the long, lonely jump back to a quarantine star. Ji-hun finally spoke his answer to the empty chamber, to Valere, to the whole galaxy that had cast them out. "Our place," he whispered, "is wherever we build it." The silence on Earth was not one of despair. It was the quiet of a held breath, of a world collectively turning its gaze inward. The global networks, stripped of the constant data flow from 1,000 alien worlds, hummed with a new singular purpose. The Council's exile had not broken humanity. It had forged it into a single, determined entity. Ji-hun and Hana stood in the central situation room, deep beneath the rebuilt city of Sol. The walls, once displaying stellar maps and diplomatic feeds, were now covered in schematics, resource allocations, and grid projections. The air tasted of recycled oxygen and strong coffee. Across from them stood two new figures. Called to the forefront by the crisis. Teho was a man who saw the universe in logistics. He had organized the relief efforts for the Great Pacific Typhoon, managing the flow of 10,000 aid ships with the ease of someone arranging furniture. Now, his calm eyes scanned the data. They gave us one cycle to recall all vessels, he said, his voice steady. We have 17 deep-range science ships, 43 freighters, and the Morning Star beyond the former council border. Calling them back is a tactical error. Hannah leaned forward. Explain. If we pull everyone back, we are blind and deaf, Teho said, tapping the map. The council expects us to retreat into our shell. We must leave eyes out there. Covert ones. The freighters and science vessels. They can be redirected. There are unmapped nebulae, gravitational dead zones. Places to hide and listen. The other figure, Su Min, scoffed. She was all sharp angles and sharper intellect, an economic strategist who had bankrupted corporate cartels before she was 30. Hide and listen? A passive strategy. They have cut us off from the galactic economy. That is our most immediate threat. No tellurium for quantum chips. No hydrazine flowers for stabilized antimatter. Our own system's resources are vast, but not infinite, and not perfectly suited to current technology. She stood and walked to the main display, pulling up a different set of data. The Council's model is extraction. They find a pre-FTL species, or a resource-rich world with simple life, and they establish a protectorate. They take what they need and give back scraps, keeping the species dependent. It is efficient for them. A cold light was in her eyes. We will offer a different deal. Ji-hun, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke. The sole proclamation. It wasn't a question. They had all been circling the same idea. We do not retreat. We expand. But not as the Council does. The plan coalesced with terrifying speed. The next day, Ji-hun stood where every human could see him. In a broadcast transmitted to every screen, every colony dome on Mars, every orbital station. People of Earth, he began, his voice carrying the weight of their shared exile. We have been told to go home and learn our place. Very well. This is our answer. Behind him, a simple, powerful symbol appeared. A blue circle for Earth, surrounded by a ring of 12 stars, for the colonies and hopes of humanity. We are no longer petitioners to a galaxy that fears us. We are the architects of our own future. By the authority of the united will of our people, I declare the sole proclamation. We will build. We will protect. We will grow. Not as an empire of conquest, but as a compact of mutual survival. The screen split. On one side, Taiho appeared from the bustling, newly renamed Sentinel shipyards orbiting Mars. Project Sentinel has begun, he said, as behind him the skeletal frames of new warships took shape. Our fleets will not be copies of Council designs. They will be stronger. They will be independent. They will carry their own fabrication units, their own quantum forges. They will not need Council ports for repairs. They will be a wall around our home, and a shelter for those who need it. On the other side, Su Min stood on a stark lunar landscape, a massive excavation project humming behind her. The Cradle Initiative is now active, she stated. We are scanning the galactic fringe for worlds in crisis, natural disasters, stellar events, civilizations on the brink. We will not offer protectorates. We will offer partnership. Join us, and we will share our technology, our knowledge, and our protection. In return, we ask for friendship and a shared commitment to a future free from the old order's tyranny. The first test came sooner than anyone expected. a deep-range astronomy array, repurposed to scan for the specific energy signatures of planetary distress instead of pulsars, found a signal. A world, designated K7G, was suffering a catastrophic supervolcanic event, triggered by a rare planetary alignment. Its dominant species, the caver, were avians with a nascent Bronze Age technology. Council long-range observers had logged the event, predicting a 99.7% extinction probability. Their report was filed under planetary cleansing, inevitable. No action was recommended. The Mercy of Bizan, a repurposed colony ship, was the first vessel of the Cradle Initiative. It was not a warship. It was a hospital, an ark, and a factory all in one. Hannah was aboard, her scientific mind essential. As the ship tore through the void on its new, efficient drive, she coordinated the response. They arrived to a world cloaked in ash, its atmosphere screaming with thermal currents. The caver were dying, their beautiful cities buried, their flocks suffocating. The council, had they come, would have landed a single shuttle, taken genetic samples and cultural artifacts for a museum, and declared the species preserved. Humanity did something else. The Mercy of Bizan unleashed a swarm of terraforming drones, built from modified mining tech, to seed the atmosphere with stabilizing compounds. Smaller shuttles, piloted by volunteers wearing hazard suits, plunged into the ash clouds using life-form scanners to find pockets of survivors. They didn't land with guns or proclamations. They landed with environmental domes, medical supplies, and protein synthesizers. Hana oversaw the evacuation of a major nesting spire, coordinating with a bewildered but desperate caver elder named Tarak. The communication was slow, based on gesture and shared purpose, not language. The message, however, was clear. We are here to help you live. They did not evacuate the entire species. That was the Council's assumed solution to make them refugees. Instead, they gave them the tools to save their world. They showed the caver how to build atmospheric scrubbers, how to reinforce their structures against tremors. They shared geological knowledge to predict the next event. In 6 months, the cataclysm began to wane. The caver would have a long recovery, but they would have a future. On their own world. As the Mercy of Bizan prepared to leave, Tarak approached Hana. Through the translator, his words were simple, earned through months of shared struggle. You saved our song. Why? What price? Hana thought of Vilas' sneer, of the cold red votes of exile. She smiled, tired but true. No price. Your song is beautiful. The galaxy would be poorer without it. We have a compact, a promise to help. If you wish, you can join it. As friends. As partners. Tarak looked at the humans, at their ship that healed instead of conquered, and then at the saved fledglings in the nursery dome. He made a soft, trilling sound, a covert sign of eternal bond. We will join your compact. Our wings are yours. Back in the Sol system, the data stream from the Mercy of Bizan was received. Tae-ho watched the feeds of the new Sentinel frigates, their hulls layered with asteroid-mined armor, taking shape. Su-min analyzed the first diplomatic agreement from the caver, a pledge of mutual aid and a sharing of their unique knowledge of aerodynamics, and Ceramics.Chi-hun looked at the updated star map. A single new light pulsed gently near the caver world. It was not a flag of conquest. It was a beacon, a marker of a promise kept. The first of many. The Council had exiled them to irrelevance. In response, Earth had not just built a fleet. It had planted a seed, and in the silent, watchful dark of the galactic fringe, that seed had just taken root. The silence of the galactic fringe was not empty. It was a canvas of background radiation, stellar winds, and the faint, rhythmic pulses of unmapped pulsars. In this quiet, the ghost of Guangzhou hung like a shadow. It was a Sentinel-class reconnaissance frigate, a knife blade of dark composite that drank in light and radar, its drive signature muffled to a whisper. Its captain, Jay, floated in the zero-G command nexus, his eyes scanning the holographic feeds. He had been out here for 11 months, a ghost watching the borders of the kingdom that had banished him. The Council, in its arrogance, believed its borders were secure. They monitored for the loud, signature-rich drives of their own technology. The ghost's engines, born from Hana's tweaks and human ingenuity, didn't register. Jay watched Terran patrols glide past, oblivious. He listened to their unencrypted, complacent chatter. They spoke of Earth as a historical footnote, a lesson in humility. They called the humans the quiet ones now, assuming the silence was that of a beaten dog. Jay's lip curled. He'd seen the dog. It was building teeth in the shipyards of Mars, and a heart in the Haven Station's Haven-3 was his home between missions. It orbited a gentle red dwarf in a forgotten sector, a sprawling tapestry of spinning habitats, dock rings, and industrial modules. It didn't look like a council world all gleaming spires and ancient symmetry. It looked alive, organic, a bit messy. Gantries connected human-designed sectors to the elegant, branching tree structures of the caver and the subterranean warrens of the HFY, a silicon-based species they'd rescued from a dying rogue planet. Here, Jay was not a ghost. He was a link in a chain. He downloaded his observational data Terran fleet movements, trade route densities, communication protocols into the compact's shared neural net. In return, he walked through markets that smelled of human coffee, caver spore blossoms, and HFY mineral salts. He heard a symphony of languages, saw children of different species playing a hybrid game that involved wings, rolling spheres, and a lot of laughing shrieks. This was the work of people like Mi Kyung. A cultural liaison, she was the opposite of Jay. Where he was silence and observation, she was connection and conversation. Her office on Haven 3 was a comfortable clutter of artifacts. A Cover feather painting, a HFY crystal growing kit, a hologram of her own family back on Earth. She didn't dictate terms. She asked questions. She learned. She helped them learn each other. The Council sees species as boxes. She explained to a group of new human arrivals, gesturing to the vibrant station beyond her viewport. Put them in a category, give them a role, and keep them separate. We see ingredients. A stew is better than a single potato. The proof of that stew was about to be tested. Outpost Theta was a remote trading station on a frozen moon, run by a joint crew of caver engineers and human geologists surveying for rare ice crystals. It was a humble place, a declaration of presence more than a strategic asset. To the Terran Combine, however, it was an insult, a stain on their claimed territory, a chance to remind the galaxy of the consequences of defying the Order. A Terran punitive force, 3 sleek destroyers marked with the Combine's jagged symbol, dropped out of warp. Their commander, a minor noble eager for glory, sent a universal demand. Abandon this illegal installation. Surrender your vessels. Your presence is a violation of Terran sovereignty. On Theta, the Caver Station chief, Kalara, flared her neck feathers in alarm, but stood her ground. The human lead, geologist Ben, simply activated the emergency beacon, a tight band, quantum-entangled pulse that screamed into the dark. The Terran commander laughed at the lack of immediate warships. They are alone. As expected, destroy the station. The destroyers moved in. Weapons powering up. The beacon was received at Haven 3. At Sentinel Command on Mars, and aboard the Ghost of Guangzhou, which was, by cruel fate or destiny, lurking only a few light years away. Jay didn't wait for orders. He slammed the Ghost into a silent high-G burn. He also did something no council captain would ever do. He opened a direct, unencrypted channel to every nearby compact vessel his sensors could find a caver swift courier carrying art supplies, a Echutok mining barge hauling asteroidal iron, a human logistics tender on a milk run. He didn't command them. He informed them. Outpost Theta under attack. Terran destroyers 3. Coordinates attached. All compact assets. Converge. Defend our people. On the Ghost, his tactical officer, a young woman named Yunji, stared at him. Captain, we're a scout ship. We have 2-point defense lasers. We can't fight destroyers. We don't have to win, Jay said, his voice calm as he plotted an intercept course that looked suicidal. We just have to stir the stew. At Theta, the Terran destroyers fired. Their bright lances of plasma cut towards the station's shields, which buckled under the assault. Then, the unexpected happened. From behind a nearby moon, the caver courier ship, small and fast, shot out. It didn't have weapons. It had a high-powered communication laser used for clearing ice from sensors. It aimed it directly at the lead destroyer's main optical array, blinding its targeting systems with a dazzling, harmless light. A confused Terran gunner swatted at it, wasting a missile on the agile, tiny craft. Then the Echutok mining barge arrived. It lumbered into the path of the second destroyer. It had no guns either, but it began venting its cargo hold, a cloud of fine metallic particulate dust, the byproduct of its excavations. The dust cloud spread, scrambling sensors and causing minor hull abrasions. The Terran formation, so perfect and intimidating, began to fray. They were being annoyed to death by civilians. Then Jay arrived. The Ghost of Guangzhou didn't fire. It shot past the lead destroyer at point-blank range. Its sophisticated electronic warfare suite designed for listening now, blasting out a burst of scrambled noise across every frequency the Terran used for targeting and communication. For 3 seconds, the destroyer was deaf, dumb, and blind. In those 3 seconds, the real cavalry arrived. 2 Sentinel frigates, the Moscow and the Jakarta, dropped out of warp. They were not as large as the destroyers, but they were tough, modular, and angry. They didn't use standard firing patterns. One fired a web of magnetic grappling lines, not to damage, but to tether and spin the second destroyer, throwing off its aim. The other launched a volley of smart missiles that bypassed the ship's heavy frontal armor, curving around to strike at its less shielded engine ports. The Terran commander stared at his tactical display. A scout ship, a mining barge, a courier, and 2 frigates were not just holding his force at bay, they were humiliating it. The coordinated, asymmetrical tactics were nothing from any military manual he knew. It was chaos. It was unpredictable. It was human. A final transmission crackled from the Ghost. It was Jay's voice, calm. You are outnumbered and outthought. Your tactics are a century old. Leave, now, or the next ships to arrive won't be so gentle. The commander, his pride in tatters, saw new signatures blinking into existence on the edge of his scope. More compact vessels answering the call. With a snarl of pure fury, he ordered a retreat. The Terran destroyers, scarred and embarrassed, turned and vanished into warp. On Outpost Theta, the shield stabilized. Kalara the caver and Ben the human stood together on the observation deck, watching their strange, wonderful fleet disperse. The mining barge, the courier, the silent ghost ship, the sturdy frigates. They hadn't been saved by a mighty armada. They'd been saved by a community. Back on Haven 3, Mi-Kyang watched the after-action reports. She saw the data, but she also saw the messages already flooding the network. The cavers singing praise songs for the brave Echutok miners. The Hatchtok offering to plate the Ghost's hull with their hardest alloys. The humans just saying thank you. She smiled, looking out at the bustling mixed-species station. The Council saw strength only in uniformity and control. They had just been shown a different kind of strength, the strength of a stew. And somewhere, in a cold chamber on a council world, a single worried report was being filed, marked for the highest level of attention. The quiet, it seemed, had been working. A new kind of silence had fallen over the Galactic Council. It was not the quiet of order, but the tense hush before a storm. The report from the Terran Combine about the debacle at Outpost Theta had been a shockwave. It wasn't the lost 3 destroyers were barely a scratch. It was the manner of it. The humans hadn't just fought. They had fought with a pack of miners, couriers, and scientists, using tactics that looked like madness but worked with chilling efficiency. The old certainties began to crack. Then a real storm came. It was not one of weapons, but of nature. It began on Nephros, a core world of the Illusion Concord, an ancient and revered species known for their art and philosophy. A cosmic anomaly, a drifting cloud of exotic particles from a long-dead star, rushed the edge of Nephros's atmosphere. The Illusions called it the Silent Scourge. It was a plague, but not on the body. It attacked the complex bioelectric fields that were the essence of Illusion life. Their vibrant, colorful forms began to fade, to go numb, to drift into a silent, waking coma. Their great cities of singing crystal fell quiet. The Council mobilized its finest medical minds. Libraries of knowledge spanning millennia were consulted. The Terran Combine sent their top xenobiologists, seeing a chance for political gain. But the scourge was novel. It was a lock for which the Council had lost the key. Each day, millions of illusions slipped further away. Despair, a feeling foreign to the graceful species, began to seep through the galaxy. The Order was helpless. On Haven 5, the primary research station of the Soul Compact, Hana watched the reports with a growing sense of cold recognition. The data, smuggled through quiet channels by scouts like Jay, flashed on her screen. The particle signatures, the bioelectric disruption patterns. They were familiar. "We've seen this," she said to her assistant, a young Kaver researcher named Treen. Not the same, but close. On the ice world with the silicate life forms. Their neural network was attacked by ionic residue from a meteor shower. The principle is similar. Treen chirped softly, her feathers rustling. "We developed a counteragent. A modulated resonance field combined with a bionanite infusion." "Yes," Hannah said, her mind racing. "But it only worked because we combined our neurobiology with the HFY's understanding of crystalline resonance and the Kaver knowledge of atmospheric delivery. It was the mixture that found the cure." She pulled up the files from that mission. The Soul Compact didn't just study other species. It integrated their science, creating a new, blended whole that was greater than the sum of its parts. She knew what she had. A possible cure, or at least a treatment. She took her findings to the Compact Leadership Council, now chaired by an older, grayer Ji-hun. The debate was fierce and painful. It was held in a simple room on Earth, the faces of representatives from a dozen species displayed on screens. "They exiled us." One of the human representatives, a former fleet commander, argued. "They left us to die. They would have let the Kaver die. Let the HFY die. This is justice. Let them feel their own failure." A HFY delegate, its voice a low vibration, spoke. "Suffering observed is suffering shared. Their inaction does not demand our own." A Kaver elder, his plumage faded with age, added, "We sing a song of shelter. If we close the nest to those in the storm, the song becomes a lie." Ji-hun listened, his eyes tired. He had carried the weight of the exile for decades. The memory of Vilair's sneer was etched in his mind. He looked at Hana's data, at the possible cure born from the very unity the Council despised. Finally, he stood. The room fell quiet. For years, Ji-hun began, his voice rough, we have asked ourselves what makes us different from the Council. Is it just better ships? A kinder hand? I think it is a simpler thing. It is the choice to do what is right, even when it is hard. Especially when it is hard. He gestured to the screens, showing the fading glory of Nephros. They have the power to destroy. We have the power, it seems, to heal. If we withhold it out of spite, then we are not better. We are just quieter versions of them. We do not define ourselves by their failures. We define ourselves by our principles. He turned to Hannah. Can you do it? Can you save them? Hannah met his gaze. We can try. The mercy of Bizin is ready. The treatment protocol is loaded. But there is risk. They may fire on us the moment we arrive. Ji-hun nodded slowly. Then we go with a single ship. No escort. We go as healers, not warriors. We make our intentions so clear, so pure, that even they will hesitate to stain it. The order was given. The mercy of Bizin, the same ship that had saved the caver, now turned its course toward the very heart of the civilization that had rejected its builders. Its holds were filled not with weapons, but with nanite fabricators and resonance field generators. Its crew were doctors and engineers, wearing simple blue uniforms with the compact's circle and stars symbol when the ship dropped out of warp at the edge of the Nephros system. The panic in the Council Defense Fleet was instant. Terran warships scrambled, weapons hot, surrounding the single, unarmed vessel. Human vessel, you are in violation of Council space. Identify your purpose or be destroyed. The Terran commander's voice was shrill with tension. Hannah, standing on the bridge, opened a channel on all frequencies, visual and audio. She appeared on every screen in the Council fleet, in the dying cities of Nephros. I am Hannah, of the Soul Compact. We have monitored the Silent Scourge. We believe we have developed a counteragent and a treatment protocol. We are requesting permission to orbit Nephros and render medical aid. We come under the flag of healing. No conditions. No demands. The silence that followed was absolute. In the council chambers, where the leaders watched, the shock was a physical blow. Valère shot to his feet. A trick. It is a Trojan horse. They will poison the atmosphere. Destroy that ship immediately. But the illusion regent, her own form faint and shimmering weakly, raised a delicate hand. Her voice was a whisper amplified. We are dying. Your science has failed. They offer a chance. She looked directly at the visual feed of Hannah. You offer this. Freely? No sovereignty? No concessions? Freely, Hannah said, her voice firm. A life saved is its own reward. The regent closed her eyes, then opened them. Grant them access. All defense forces stand down. Let the healers pass. It was a humiliation for the Terran, for the entire council structure. But against the stark reality of extinction, pride melted away. The mercy of Bizin descended. Compact teams, human, caver, and HFY worked side by side under the terrified and hopeful eyes of the illusions. They set up field generators that pulsed with a soft, golden light, a blend of technologies. They administered the infusions. It was not an instant miracle, but within hours, the fading of the illusions stopped. Then, slowly, color began to return to their forms. A low, harmonious hum, the sound of illusion collective peace, began to resonate through the world once more. Hannah stood in a great crystal plaza, now filled with the gentle light of recovery. The illusion regent approached, her form vibrant again, glowing with soft blues and purples. You have given us back our song, the regent said. The meaning deeper than words. Your song is beautiful, Hannah replied, echoing her words to the caver so long ago. The galaxy needs it. The act echoed through the stars, more powerful than any weapon. The narrative the Council had crafted of humanity as a dangerous, selfish child shattered. Here was the ultimate act of altruism, offered to those who had been complicit in their exile. The compact had not just built an empire. It had demonstrated an empire's soul. Villaire, watching from afar, felt a cold dread that had nothing to do with war. They could fight an enemy. How do you fight a better idea? How do you fight a mercy that exposes your own cruelty? The foundation of the old order, already cracked, now began to crumble. The chamber hadn't changed. It was the same circle of cold light, the same humming air, the same ancient symbols of galactic unity etched into walls that had witnessed 1,000,000 years of cautious history. But everything else was different. The air was no longer thick with judgment, but with a brittle tension, the quiet of a dam about to break. The seats were filled, but many of the faces that had once looked on with disdain or indifference now held expressions of deep unease, or even open curiosity. The doors, the same massive slabs that had sealed humanity out, slid open with their thunderous boom. But this time, the delegation that entered did not walk with the hesitant steps of petitioners. It walked with the quiet confidence of equals. Ji-hun was there, his hair now fully white, his face lined not with worry, but with a deep, weathered calm. Hana walked beside him, her scientist's eyes taking in the chamber with clinical precision, remembering every detail of their humiliation. And between them walked a new figure. His name was Dae-Hyan. He was tall, with the sturdy frame of a human, but his eyes held the distinctive, flecked pattern of a cover. His hair was dark, but subtle feather crests traced the line of his jaw. He was the first ambassador of the Soul Compact, and he was living proof of its central idea, not assimilation, but synthesis. He was the child of two worlds, raised on Haven 3, educated in human history and Kyber song logic. He was the future they had built. They did not approach the empty, humble podium from before. A new platform had been prepared at the very center of the chamber, a place for a speaker of significance. The silence was absolute as they took their positions. Valere, his iron-like skin seeming tarnished, watched from the Terran seats, his black eyes burning with a mixture of fury and profound anxiety. The presiding intelligence chimed, its tone unsure. The Soul Compact delegation is recognized. Dae-Hyan stepped forward. He did not bow. He simply began to speak, his voice a unique blend of human resonance and Kyber tonal harmony. It carried through the chamber, translated for all. Decades ago, a delegation from Earth stood here. They were told they were too loud, too fast, too kind. They were told to go home and learn their place. He paused, letting the memory hang. They did. They learned that their place was not at the foot of someone else's table, waiting for scraps. Their place was to build a new table, and to invite everyone who was hungry to it. He gestured, and a holographic star map loomed above him. It was not the Council's map, with its neat, bordered territories and client states. This was a map of the Soul Compact. It was a web of light's human worlds, caver nests, Hachutok deep homes, illusion sanctuaries, and a dozen others. Lines of trade and communication connected them not in a hub and spoke to a central power, but in a complex, resilient network. It was messy. It was alive. You see before you not an empire, Dae-Hyan continued. You see a compact, a promise of mutual aid, of shared knowledge, of protection without oppression. We saved the caver from geologic fate. We sheltered the Hachutok from stellar death. We healed the illusions from the scourge. He looked directly at the illusion regent, who glowed softly in her seat and inclined his head. We did not do this to make them subjects. We did it to make them partners. Their strength is our strength. Their song is our song. Valere could stay silent no longer. He surged to his feet, his voice a rasp of outrage. This is propaganda. You have built a military alliance in secret, flouting galactic law. You seduce simple species with tricks, and then bind them to your will. You are a cancer, and you must be cut out. Dahayan turned his calm, flecked eyes toward Valere. The anger did not touch him. Counselor Valere, the Terran Combine has 17 client species under protectorate status. How many of their representatives sit in this chamber with full voting rights? The answer, 0, echoed in the silence. Dahayan didn't wait for it. In the compact, every species, from the oldest to the newest, has an equal voice. We do not have clients. We have colleagues. He returned his gaze to the whole council. We are not here to ask for a seat at this table. The truth is, we have outgrown the need for it. A ripple of shock went through the assembly. They had expected demands, perhaps threats. They did not expect dismissal. Then why are you here? Asked the wispy Zend counselor, its form swirling in confusion. We are here to offer you a choice, Jihan said, speaking for the first time. His voice was old, but it had the strength of bedrock. The galaxy is at a crossroads. One path is the old path control, hierarchy, stagnation. It is the path that led you to watch worlds die and call it inevitable. It is the path that saw unity as a threat. Hannah took a small step forward, her voice clear and factual. The other path is the one we have walked. It is harder. It requires trust. It requires listening to voices you have ignored. But it works. Our drives are faster because a caver engineer saw a flaw in our plasma geometry. Our medicines are broader because a HTOC chemist understood crystalline bonds. We are stronger, not in spite of our differences, but because of them. Dahayan raised his hands, and the hologram shifted. It showed a new design, a framework. We propose the dissolution of the current Galactic Council structure and the formation of a Galactic Concord. Membership is voluntary. The central principle is this: all intelligent life has inherent value and the right to self-determination. The Concord's sole functions will be mutual defense against external threats, the maintenance of free trade lanes, and the sharing of knowledge for the betterment of all. It will not dictate culture. It will not enforce political systems. It will not have seniority. The proposal hung in the air, revolutionary and simple. It stripped away millennia of layered power and privilege. For many younger, oppressed species in the chamber, it was a beacon. For the old powers, it was an earthquake. Valere looked around and saw the change. He saw the illusions, saved by human hands, nodding in agreement. He saw representatives from species that Terran had long dominated leaning forward, their eyes alight with a terrible, hopeful fire. The authority of the Council had always been built on the unshakable belief in its own permanence. Now a better, fairer alternative stood in the center of its own chamber, and it was making sense. This is anarchy. Valere spat, but the heat was gone from his words. They sounded like a plea. No, Dahayan said softly. It is maturity. We have learned that the only empire worth building is one of respect. The only fleet worth commanding is one that shelters. Earth was exiled for sharing too much. So we built a galaxy where sharing is the foundation. He looked at Ji-hun and Hana, then back at the assembly. We will return to our space. The offer stands. The compact will continue to grow. You may choose to remain in your old house, watching its walls crack. Or you can step outside and help us build a new one, under a sky big enough for every song. The delegation turned. As one, they walked back toward the great doors. No one called for a vote. No one tried to stop them. The old order was not defeated by weapons, but by a vision it could not comprehend and could not match Dot as the doors closed behind them. Not with a bang of finality, but with the same low rumble. The chamber erupted into a cacophony of voices, angry, hopeful, fearful, excited. The vote that would come later was now a formality. The true shift had already happened. Outside, aboard their sleek, compact vessel, Ji-hun looked at the receding council ring, a monument to a fading past. He felt no triumph, only a quiet fulfillment. "Do you think they'll join?" Hana asked, watching the same view. Dae-hyun answered, a gentle, hybrid smile on his face. "Some will. Today, others will take generations. But the seed is planted. They can no longer pretend ours is not a valid way to exist. We are no longer exiles." He placed a hand on the viewport, where the stars, countless and bright, awaited. "We are gardeners.